It's time for the Kenner Chronicles, Ramblings of a Toy Junkie. Hello everybody, welcome back to the Kenner Chronicles. What is the Kenner Chronicles? If you don't know, it's where we talk about Kenner. What is Kenner, you ask? If you grew up in the 80s, then you don't have to ask. Your house was full of Kenner. Kenner was the best toy line there was in the 80s. We had Star Wars, we had Superpowers, we had Ghostbusters, we had Police Academy, we had The Shadow, we had Bill and Ted, we had everything. We had Nerf, we had Play-Doh, we had coloring books that were Kenner, puzzles that were Kenner, game boards that were Kenner. Kenner was the toy of the 80s. Now I know it came out long before the 80s, but hey, we're mostly going to focus on the 80s and the 90s, but we're going to talk about everything. That's why we call this That's why we call this the Rambling Podcast for a Toy Junkie. Because yes, we might start out with Kenner, but we might end up talking about some girl I had a crush on in the 3rd grade like we did on our test show. So if you haven't listened to our test shows on YouTube, then this is all new to you. So you're saying, what the hell is this? Well, here it is. I'm going to lay it out. We're going to talk Kenner, and we're going to talk whatever comes to mind. This isn't going to be a format where we spend a whole hour talking about one topic. This is a free-form podcast. We're going to talk about everything. Our plan is to start somewhere around the topic and let the podcast drift. Now, what do we got coming up besides this episode? Well, we're going to have a whole episode dedicated to The Shadow. Does anyone remember that? The Shadow Kenner line. I know what you're thinking. You say, who gives a shit about Kenner? The Shadow line. That movie sucked. Nobody cares about the toys. Well, we got a guy that's a Shadow collector, and he collects everything The Shadow, and he's going to come on and talk about The Shadow. Now, if you're anything like me, I saw this movie at the theater, and I didn't give a shit about it. I thought it was pretty boring. In fact, one of my running jokes back then, because the tagline for The Shadow was, The Shadow Knows. And I would say, The Shadow knows how to put the audience to sleep. And I'm not saying that was a great joke, but that was my joke back then. And also, which I hope to have coming up sometime in August, we're going to do an interview with Kyle Newman. Who is Kyle Newman? No, he's not the guy that was on Seinfeld. This is the guy that directed Fanboys. If you haven't seen Fanboys, then if you're a Star Wars fan and you've never seen Fanboys, then just go ahead and just end it, or just go rent it right now. I guess you can't rent it. Just go download it, whatever kids do these days. Fanboys is about a group of guys. One of them has cancer. Before he dies, his dream is to see the Phantom Menace. So what do? They take a road trip out to Skywalker Ranch, break in, and they're going to watch the Phantom Menace. It's a hilarious movie. It's directed by Kyle Newman. He is a huge Star Wars Kenner vintage fan, and we hope to have him on the show. We've kind of talked with him back and forth on Twitter about it. He said he would love to do it. We would love to have him, so let's have him. But let's start off this podcast, if I don't run out of breath first. But first up, before we start, let me give you a fair warning. I know I got that hick southern accent, but also I'm going to stumble over some words. I might actually even say some words wrong, and I might even stutter. I'm going to try to edit all that out I can, but again, this is free form. I'm going to try my best not to edit too much. And you might hear me take a sip of drink every now and then, because your mouth gets dry when you're talking an hour, even when you're talking about something as great as toys. So let's go. Today's topic to start the show is how Star Wars made Kenner and then destroyed Kenner. That's right. Kenner was a well-established toy company long before Star Wars, but Star Wars made Kenner into the household name that it was. Now, before Star Wars, I guess Kenner's biggest boy toy line had to be $6 Million Man. This was Barbie-sized dolls, action figures, of the $6 Million Man. A great line. They had $6 Million Man, they had Oscar Goldman, they had a Fembot, they had the Bigfoot. It was a great line. Kind of hard to play with because of the size. And when Kenner took over Star Wars, that's what they did. They worked closely with Lucas to come up with a way to make figures and ships. If they did them, the standard line at this time was the G.I. Joe doll size, about a 12-inch line. That was standard at this time. So you had $6 Million Man, that was the 12-inch line. Everything, every boy toy, don't that sound sexy. Every boy toy back then was about a 12-inch line, but you couldn't do that with Star Wars. If you had a 12-inch line, which, yes, I know they had the large action figure line later, but I'm talking about the mass action figure line. If you had Han and Luke and Chewie and all them, what kind of Falcon would you have to play with? Falcon will be at the size of your living room. So what Kenner did, working with Lucas, is came up with a 3.75 inch figures, perfect size, not too small, not too tall. They was really great scale with the ships. And Kenner took off. Star Wars was released in 1977. Sadly, Kenner didn't have figures ready. They didn't know it was going to be a monster hit. And the plan was just to throw out some figures probably around Christmas time. But then, whoa, Star Wars. Bam! What a major motion picture. And Kenner was caught with their pants down. What are they going to do? So they released, as the famous 1977 at Christmas time, they released a certificate of just an empty box saying, hey, we're going to mail you some Star Wars figures. Like that, kids? So that's what they did. In 1978, Series 1, the first 12 hit. And each year after that, they released one after another. 78 and 79, they released another line of figures. 1980, they moved into Empire and kept releasing Empire figures until 83. Well, you know how all that goes. But Star Wars Kenner was a massive success. I mean, they made millions of dollars just that first year alone, just in the Star Wars toys. So, without a doubt, Star Wars made Kenner. There's no doubt about it. There's no debate. Kenner would not be the name it is now or was back then if it wasn't for Star Wars. So we all know and we all agree that Star Wars built Kenner. But here's the thing. Did you know Star Wars also destroyed Kenner? That's right. The downfall of Kenner can also be included to that's right. The downfall of Kenner, you can also blame on Star Wars. But that's not it. You can also blame a dinosaur. And no, we're not talking Barney. Let's talk first, before we get into that, let's talk 1993, a banner year where we have to talk about 1993. What happened in 1993 to Kenner? Kenner was owned by Tonka, General Mills at this time. And in 1993, toy giant Hasbro took over Tonka. They bought Tonka, which included they bought Kenner. So Kenner and Hasbro merged in 1993. Right by this time, Kenner was working on the Batman animated series, a great line of figures. And I think maybe Robin Hood was around that time also. But Kenner bought it in 1993. Now you're going to hear a lot of people. Now you're going to hear me probably complain about Hasbro Kenner era. Because to me, the true Kenner era ended in 1993, maybe a little around 1993. But Star Wars came back in 95, was again a huge success. Didn't hurt Kenner or Hasbro at that time, even though those figures looked like big muscle men from the He-Man collection. But no, it didn't. In fact, Kenner had one of his best years, or Hasbro. Yeah, I get all confused around this Hasbro era. Kenner's division of Hasbro had one of the biggest years ever, thanks to Star Wars in 95. They also released the ships, and I'll give credit to Hasbro for this. They released the ships where they took the mold from the vintage line, but they tweaked them enough to where collectors wouldn't feel like they were getting ripped off, or that Hasbro was just re-releasing the old stuff. You know, they added some new electronics and kind of changed the colors, but they use the same mold. Of course, that's going to save them tons of money, so I can't blame them for that. So, we're up to 95. Star Wars is back on the toy shelves. It's a huge hit. The special edition is about to come out in 97. Star Wars is back. I mean, we had a little dry spell between 85 and 95 where Star Wars was almost dead except for a few novels here and there and some role-playing games and some video games. But how does Star Wars in 95 help Kenner grow even more, but then cause it to die? Well, let's go up to 1998 first, and we saw Kenner have a horrible year selling Jurassic Park Chaos Effect line. What is the Chaos Effect? I don't know. I don't collect Jurassic Park. I know there's some colorful dinosaurs, but what I do know is the Chaos Effect was going to be based on a Jurassic Park cartoon. Now, that cartoon got canceled. I'm not really sure why. You know, it's kind of like the Aliens cartoon got canceled, but they had the Aliens figures to go with it. So, they had the figures. They didn't have the cartoon. But this was a poor sell for Hasbro. Hasbro Kenner. They had a plan for their 1999 line, which is going to be a glow-in-the-dark Jurassic Park line called Night Hunter. That's right. Let that sink in. A glow-in-the-dark Jurassic Park line. Glow-in-the-dark dinosaurs. But with the bad sales of 1998, Kenner was seeing Kenner saw Jurassic Park more and more as a problem and not a name they could be proud of. So in 99, they decided to shelf this whole glow-in-the-dark thing for Jurassic Park. It was a dumb idea anyway. But what else happened in 1999? The Phantom Menace. Star Wars is back, better than ever. Let me take that back. Star Wars is back. Bigger than ever, maybe? I'm not sure. But it was back. Hasbro was ready on the ball this time to have Star Wars toys out in the toy stores before the film came out, a couple weeks before. We didn't have Force Friday. We had a Force May. I think it was a Sunday night, a Monday morning, if I remember correctly, at midnight. The Phantom Menace was back. Star Wars was back, and the Phantom Menace was everywhere. Every store had probably 8-foot sections or more of the Phantom Menace toys. They probably had the main aisle up near the front of the store dedicated to Star Wars, such as Toys R Us. They would have probably 4 to 8 foot back in the toy section. But the main action alley of Toys R Us, they would have a whole display of nothing. So everybody's Toys R Us, Target, Walmart, Kmart. Zayres was gone by then, so no Zayres. But everybody had barrels and barrels of the Phantom Menace toys. Now, don't get me wrong, the Phantom Menace toys sold well, just Hasbro produced way too many of them. The stores were overstocked. They couldn't sell all they had. Hasbro had them sitting in warehouses they couldn't sell. So what's that mean? Again, the Star Wars line, the Phantom Menace line, wasn't a failure. It wasn't because people didn't buy them. I mean, people bought them in droves. But, I mean, Hasbro's problem was they overproduced. You know, they didn't want to get caught with not having enough in the toy aisle, so I guess they felt, whoever was running Hasbro at the time felt, hey, let's just push it all out there, and then we'll deal with having too much later. But it came back to hurt them, that's for sure. So, and due to the Jurassic Park 1998 chaos effect selling so poorly, and then because of the Phantom Menace lines being overproduced and way too much stock out there in the markets, they didn't make as much as they thought they was gonna make it. Guess what Hasbro did? They downsized, and they closed the Kenner department in Cincinnati in 2000. That's right, Kenner has started in Cincinnati. It was always in Cincinnati since 1947. 53 years later, after Hasbro bought it, they shut the door on the Kenner in Cincinnati. Kenner was gone. They laid off over 400 people, and out of those laid off was the Jurassic Park design team. They took the Star Wars design team and had them work on Star Wars from 2000 on up, and the same designers that worked on the Star Wars worked on the Jurassic Park 3 line. Kenner was done. I know since then Hasbro's releasing stuff with the Kenner name on it, but Hasbro, and I look at Kenner being done in 1993. But yes, they made some good stuff in the mid-90s. But the year 2000 was the end of Kenner. Kenner is gone. It's name only. That's all that's left is Hasbro owning the name. In fact, let me mute that shit so y'all don't have to hear it. Okay. Hasbro was gone. Star Wars was now under the Hasbro toy banner. I think all their boy lines was going under a Hasbro title now. So you didn't see Kenner anymore. But that's how Star Wars brought down Kenner. Star Wars in 1978 built Kenner into the mass empire that it was. And then, sadly, in 1999, thanks to some dinosaurs, Jurassic Park, which was kind of getting carried away at this time. I don't really blame people for not buying them anymore. They were getting away from the movie and having all these colored dinosaurs. You know, Jurassic Park back then was kind of like, it's kind of like the Batman movies of the 90s. You know, Batman started out really strong. Then it had a sequel, Batman Returns, that was okay. I liked it, but then you had Batman Forever, Batman and Robin. It got into more about the villain of the week instead of getting into being a Batman movie. Jurassic Park, for me anyway, I didn't collect it. Maybe you can tell me something different. Seemed it got like that, where you started out with the movie figures, then it just got where dinosaurs were in bright colors. They was all weird looking. I mean, the glow in the dark line. Who thought that kids needed a glow in the dark Jurassic Park line? I mean, really. So Jurassic Park's weak sales hurt Hasbro. And then on top of that comes the Phantom Menace, which sells all right, but they overproduced everything. If you was back there in 1999, you know how everything, it was mass production. You had those little contact readers that you put, that made the figures talk. It sounded like shit. I don't know why they went so overboard. Well, I guess I know why they went over for the Phantom Menace. I mean, it was Star Wars fever, and like I said, they rather get caught overproducing than having stores empty. Which brings us now to 2017, and damn, try to find anything good now in the store, and they're all empty. I mean, you got Force Friday, and again, Hasbro, even to this day on like Force Friday, Hasbro will slam these stores with so much inventory that these stores don't want to reorder when new series come out because they're sitting on all that old product, or they order extremely light because they think, hey, all that Force Friday shit sat back here in the stock room for 6 months. So Hasbro, if you're a fan of Hasbro, sorry, but Hasbro has some issues. They've always had issues, I think, at least since the 90s, about getting stuff to the store. They have a problem of finding the right amount to send to stores. It's like they either don't make enough or they make too much. So I don't know, but Kenner died in the year 2000, actually 99. They closed the door in 2000. No more Kenner. This is a segment I want to do called Star Wars. No, I didn't say Star Wars all weird and hillbilly accent. I said Star Wars. These are taken from I'm a huge fan of the Marvel Star Wars comics. The old ones, not the new ones. Which ran from, I think, 77, might have been late 76, to 85, somewhere around there, give or take a year. And each issue, or most of the issues, will have a place where people will write letters. Now, if you don't know the Marvel comics, this is great reading these letters because a lot of times it transports you back into that time. You see a lot of people writing in about, is Darth Vader really Luke's father? Or what's going to happen to Han Solo? And it really transports you back in time in these comics. So I figured I'd pick probably one letter out on each podcast to read and have a little fun with it. This is from issue number 17. It's a prequel comic book, probably the first Star Wars prequel ever. It's about Luke Skywalker. As the cover says, it's the untold tale of Luke Skywalker's past. And I haven't read it in a long time, so I can't really give you what it's all about. But I remember it's about Luke on Tatooine, and he runs into some Tusken Raiders. But I was looking over this Star Wars where someone wrote a letter into the editors. And this one sounded like something you might hear today, so I thought, hey, let's read this. Remember, this is from 1978. Let me see what year this is. Let me just check real quick for the year. 1978, November. So I'm going to try to read this again. I might stumble over some words, so I'll try to edit it if I do. But here goes. Dear Marvel. See, I'm screwing up already. Dear Marvel, I really enjoyed what you're doing with the Star Wars comics. The writing is great, and their artwork is superb. I think it's one of your best titles since the X-Men. Anyway, there's one complaint I keep hearing about Star Wars, and that's the absence of blacks and other non-white humans. I agree that that's one major fault. I don't know if it was intentional. I kind of doubt it. I think it was just a big mistake. It was also apparent in Logan's Run, but you corrected that mistake in the comic book version. Why have you not done the same for Star Wars? Julia from Hyde Park wrote that to Marvel. Here's Marvel, and like I said, it kind of fits in today. You can hear people complain about, well, not Star Wars. Star Wars is very diverse today. But you know what I'm saying. You can hear people complain about that today. Rightly so or not rightly so. That's your opinion. But here's what Marvel had to say back to Julia. Several other letters have mentioned this, Julia. It comes to us that you may be overlooking the fact that Star Wars takes place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. What may hold true about the makeup of society in Earth's future, like Rogan's Run, or even Earth's past, as in Conan the Barbarian, wouldn't necessarily apply in Star Wars, a distant galaxy. Which isn't to say that you'll never see a non-white in a Star Wars movie or comic. Just bear in mind that both in the film and in our comics have only touched a few small parts of a very large galaxy. There are worlds and characters in every description just waiting to be explored. Stick with us and find out for yourself. That right there was written. That was Marvel's reply back to Julia about her wondering why there was no diversity or no one non-whites in Star Wars. Again, that was before The Empire Strikes Back and Lando came out. So I just thought I'd do that every podcast or so. Like I said, if you don't know about the old Marvel series, especially if you're an older fan, if you're a fan into the old stuff, pick up the Marvel comics. Now, I'm not sure what they go for. Luckily, back in the early 90s, I started collecting them, and I was able to pick up the whole run. It took me about 3 years. This was before eBay, before you could really buy stuff on the internet, so I would have to go to comic shows. I would have to go to comic book stores, and I had to track them all down. That last issue, I think it's 105 or is it 107? Anyway, that final issue that one took a long time. And what was really hard to track down, if you can track them down, get them. They're not made by Marvel. In the late 80s, I can't remember the comic book line now, but it was a comic line that did 3D comic books. And they came out with a 3-issue Star Wars 3D comic book. And for years, I found the first issue, and for years I just thought, and they must not have finished it. They must have canceled the line before they got to 2 and 3. But I'm talking, I probably bought that in 94. It was probably 2006 before I found the other two. So that's something good to pick up. But the Marvel line, the Marvel comic books, if you're really into the old vintage Star Wars stuff, pick those up. They really transform you back into how Star Wars was at the beginning and the mindset. And they're just beautiful artwork and great stories. There's some cheesy stories too, don't get me wrong. There's some great stories too. And it kind of, after Return of the Jedi, they kind of had their hands tied where Lucas wouldn't let them do anything dealing with the Force or dealing with the Empire or dealing with the Sith. So they would kind of had their hands tied after that, and it kind of got really, really downhill. But still, it's worth the read. That's what today's Marvel comics just seem like they're all so serious. Got to be canon. They got to do this. These were just wholesome fun. This is like the Archie of the universe. Just wholesome fun. And since we're on the topic of the vintage years, the old years of Star Wars, and the old fan base, let's bring up a current Marvel editor, Heather. Now I know I'm going to say her name wrong. Antos, Antos. I don't know who this person is. All I know is that she works for Marvel, and apparently she's been given the right to write a Thrawn comic book. On Twitter the other day, she took some slack because she tweeted, "Boba Fett is boring." And she didn't just leave it there. I replied to her and tried to explain to her that Boba Fett isn't boring, that you're crazy if you think Boba Fett's boring. She replied that she likes Salacious Crumb better than Boba Fett. But it's not the fact of who she liked and didn't like. It's the fact that she said Boba Fett is boring. So let's talk about that. I told her that's just how millennials see Boba Fett. She, some reason, got offended that I told her that she was acting like a true millennial. Hey, she is. They don't understand Boba Fett. If you're listening to this podcast and you're anything like me, that you grew up on Star Wars back when it was new, you understand Boba Fett. Boba Fett's not about what you saw in the film. We first saw Boba Fett in 1979 as the Kenner rocket-firing Boba Fett. We had no internet. We knew nothing about Boba Fett. All we know, we went to the toy store. We saw a Snaggletooth or a Greedo. We took it home. That's when we noticed on the back this very cool-looking guy. We couldn't tell if he was an alien. He didn't really look like an alien. We weren't sure if he was an alien. Was he a droid? Was he a human in armor? We, had very little information about him. And then we saw him in the holiday special, and it blew our mind away. Who is this guy? Darth Vader called him the greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy. So, building up to The Empire Strikes Back, we had this myth of who Boba Fett was. We had this love for Boba Fett that you just don't get. And what I was trying to explain to this Heather that says Boba Fett's boring, yes, to her and her new age fans, looking back, he's probably boring. It's like, my dad was a huge Elvis fan. And don't get me wrong, I don't think Elvis is boring. I like Elvis, I'm just using an example. But how my dad saw Elvis, because my dad was there growing up with when Elvis was new. In fact, he was a roadie. My dad was a roadie for Jerry Lee Lewis, but I'm not going to talk about that. But So the way my dad sees Elvis and the way I see Elvis, who I think Elvis died in 1977. So I was, 4 or 5 when he died. So the way I see Elvis is not how someone that lived through Elvis sees Elvis. And that's how I see Boba Fett. If you didn't live through Boba Fett, you don't understand Boba Fett like we do. Don't get me wrong. If you're in your 20s or you're a teenager or you just now into Star Wars and you love Boba Fett, you can love Boba Fett. I'm just saying you do not get the appeal of Boba Fett the same way. You like him, you love him, you like it, you love him, but you don't understand the same appeal as we do. This is what I was trying to tell Heather, but she seemed to take everything as a personal attack, which I don't really understand. I don't understand why you would be hired to work on a Marvel comic book, and the first thing you do is tweet a negative comment about one of the most popular figures in Star Wars. It just seems rude, and it seems like you're just going to piss off your readers. Because I'm sure a lot of people that's going to buy that Throne comic book are Boba Fett fans. I probably wouldn't buy the Throne comic book anyway. I'm not really interested. I don't really buy the comics, and Thrawn's never really interested. I mean, I like Thrawn in the Heir to the Empire, but after that, I never really had much care for him. But I don't think he's boring. But what I don't. But I wouldn't buy this comic book that she's editing or writing, whatever she's doing, just because I know how she feels about Boba Fett. Is that stupid on my part? Yes, it might be. Is it biased? Yes. Am I wrong for judging it that way? Yes. But I'd rather see someone hired within Marvel that I'm not going to say they have to love everything that Star Wars does or every character, but do you have to go online and bash a most popular character? It's just like if she was hired to write a new comic book and she got on and started bashing the prequels. I wouldn't support it either. I'm not a prequel basher. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, you can tell us what you didn't like about it, what you liked about it, but it just comes off as, one, it came off as she's just trying to get under people's skin, trying to be the too cool for the room. Because let's face it, Boba Fett is cool. So, you know how it is when you're the cool kid. When you're the cool person in the group, you gotta not like what everybody else likes, If everybody loved Jar Jar Binks, she'd be screaming how boring Jar Jar Binks is. She probably is gonna talk about how much she loves Jar Jar Binks because everybody hates it. That's just how some people are. They're too cool for the room. And that's all this tweet was somebody trying to show, hey, look at me. I'm too cool for the room. Boba Fett's boring. Again, if you didn't grow up with Boba Fett, you might like him, you might love him, but you don't understand him the same way we did. We had a build-up for almost 2 years of who this Boba Fett guy is. And let's face it, Boba Fett was the coolest badass in the movies. Sure, you had Darth Vader. But Darth Vader was a bad guy. Boba Fett was a badass. You could love him. You knew he was just doing this for the money. That's what was great about him. And who else can track down Han Solo? Who else knew what Han Solo was doing to get away from the Imperials in Empire Strikes Back? He brought Darth Vader to Han. How can you not like Boba Fett? He's got armor all over him. He looks cool. He looks badass. Boba Fett is not boring. You can say Boba Fett was misused. You can say he's overrated. I might give you overrated if you're just looking at it from a movie point of view. I give you that. But boring? How do you say boring? Sorry, Heather. He's not a boring character. I don't know if you hadn't read, Shadows of the Empire or other things he's done that's no longer canon. He has some great stories there. But no, Boba Fett can't be boring. I'm sorry, he can't be boring. That's like if I said the Beatles were boring or Elvis was boring, it's because I didn't grow up in that timeline. I try to tell my daughter or my son about Nirvana, and they think, oh, that's boring. It's boring rock music. I was like, no, if you lived through Nirvana, you lived through Kurt Cobain in the early '90s, you see it a whole different way. Now again, she's entitled to her opinion. Don't get me wrong. But, of course, I'm entitled to my opinion to disagree with her and to say that she's just trying to be too cool for the room. That's what I think. Now, I know that there's going to be somebody I hate to say the name, making Star Wars, that's going to say I'm just attacking her because she's a female. But I don't care. I don't care who says Boba Fett is boring. If you say Boba Fett is boring, I'm going to come back and tell you why I think it's not. I'm not attacking anybody. You got your right to believe it. You got your right to not believe it. But it's not. You just have to look at it. You just have to look at it from a different point of view, as Obi-Wan would say, a different point of view. You have your older fans that grew up on him, that laid in their bed looking at the Marvel comic books, the action figures, dreaming, trying to figure out who this guy is, seeing him in a cartoon, capturing Luke Skywalker. And you had this build up for almost 2 years of who this guy is, so you wouldn't let down. And let's face it, Boba Fett just looks like a badass. Have you seen the Kenner 12-inch Boba Fett line figure? Today is still one of the best 12-inch figures there is. It's amazing looking. Just Boba Fett just looks cool. So, let's not rant about Boba Fett all night. But Heather, please rethink what you think about Boba Fett. Again, if you think he's boring, he's boring. But I don't see why you need to go on Twitter and just throw that out there and just get Star Wars fans, Boba Fett fans in a rage. I mean, it just seems like like I said, you're just trying to be too cool for the room, and you're trying to get something started, because then she was, me, I'm getting attacked because I said Boba Fett was boring and nerds are attacking me. Now they're on my Switch and they're attacking me. Good. You say something stupid, people get called out for it. That's the way it should be, right? You got the freedom to say it, and we got the freedom to call you out when you say something stupid. So I can't, like I said, I probably wouldn't buy her comics anyway. I don't really buy the new Marvel stuff. But I couldn't support somebody that's just trying to get under people's skin by attacking probably the most popular character, or at least close to it, next to Darth Vader. So I just don't understand why somebody would do that. But hey, that's just me. Now let's talk about a word we all hate, or hope we all hate. Reproduction. Oh, I'm going to have to spend a whole podcast talking about the evils of reproduction. But I just want to bring this up. The Goodwill website. Goodwill has a website. It's kind of like an eBay for Goodwill. And I believe this one, hold on, let me look real quick. Wisconsin. This one was on Wisconsin. Listed on the Goodwill site. Vintage Star Wars Jawa with vinyl cape. MOC. If you don't know what MOC is, you might want to turn this podcast off. But it means mint on card. Now, nowhere in the description does it say that this is a reproduction figure. Luckily they have some pictures. On the first picture is him on his bubble, on his card, and that cape is just way too dark. I mean, I think anybody looking at it is going to tell it's fake. That's one good thing I'll give it, that, hey, you can tell it's fake. It's really too dark. But if you look at the back of the card, it looks like a normal 12 back. But in the little black section where there's no text, they've added some text that says reproduction packaging, which is kind of hard to see. But see, Goodwill didn't know that. This people work at Goodwill didn't know that. That's what I keep saying about reproduction. Sure, it might look good in your collection, but one day you're going to die. You're not going to be there. And your grandkids, they're not going to give a shit about your Star Wars collection like you do. They're going to take all grandpa's shit. They're going to throw it up on eBay, or take it or have an estate sale and say, look, this is my Star. And they're going to say this, that, hey, he grew up on Star Wars. This is his stuff when he was a kid. They're not going to sort through it and know what reproductions. They're going to take some shitty pictures and they're going to throw it up on eBay. And you're going to be searching eBay, well, not you because you'll be dead. Somebody else in the future is going to be searching eBay, and they're going to come across it and they're going to see some figures and not be able to tell if they're reproductions or not. And they're going to order it and get ripped off. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, that's the buyer's fault. No, it's the reproduction's fault. Yes, the buyer has a responsibility to know what they're buying. But we don't need reproduction. There's a reason why you don't go into Walmart and find... See, I can't even think of a current clothes brand. But Hilfiger's coming to mind. That was probably in the 90s. I don't know if people still wear Tommy Hilfiger. But there's a reason Hasbro don't sell, rip-off Tommy Hilfigers. You don't flood the market with reproduction. Reproductions are crap. So, look, here, guys, if you don't buy it, these people are not going to make it. It's a supply and demand thing. Now, I'll give a lot of eBay credit. I'll give a lot of eBay sellers credit that they do say it's a reproduction when it is. But that doesn't mean everyone does it. Believe me, there's a lot on eBay that doesn't do it. And and they fall into that, I didn't know category. That's what they say anyway. Here's a classic eBay. This is classic somebody who has a reproduction figure and they don't want you to know. They'll say, hey, I found this at Goodwill. They'll say something like that. I found this at a store. I don't know what it's worth. I just picked it up because I knew it was Star Wars. Or they'll say, hey, my grandpa collected these and this is his. Or my dad had this, this was his. Those are the two classic examples that set off alarms and let you know, hey, reproduction. But getting back to the vinyl cape Jawa on the Goodwill site, I think it did sell just for $9.99, I think, if last time I looked at it. So that's good, but now that one's out there in the market somewhere. And it's getting scary how good they are at reproduction, these carded figures. I mean, you got a card, you got a bubble. It's really hard to tell looking at pictures. I know if you see one in person, maybe you can tell on pictures also, but you can tell by the glue. The original glue on the bubble and the card is kind of like I call it like a honeycomb pattern. If you've got a vintage card, go look at it. You'll be able to tell. That's something the reproduction people haven't been able to copy just yet. Now, I'm not saying they won't one day, because they're getting really good at this stuff. But at least, and here's another thing. This package on the back, if you look for it, says reproduction packaging. So what's that tell you? That tells you that the card is a reproduction. It doesn't say the figure's a reproduction, but that's not a Jawa, vinyl cape Jawa. That's a fake cape. I don't know. That's not even an Obi-Wan cape. It's so dark. I don't know why they... You would think they're so good at making it, they can make the cape look a little better. I mean, it stands out. It looks like a Hershey bar. It looks like the Jawa's wearing a Hershey bar. But I just wanted to bring up reproductions. Again, I know people that buy the weapons and just, like I said, I need to spend a whole podcast on it. I got a video on YouTube about how bad it is. But please, it's more fun buying the stuff that's original. I know what you're saying. Hey, I can't afford some of this. I can't afford a vinyl cape Jawa. You know, that's thousands of dollars. Okay, well, you're not going to have it in your collection then. Okay? And look, I'm a cheap ass. Nobody's a cheap ass more than me. You know, people ask to see my collection. I don't really have that much because most of my stuff is loose because I can't afford the carded stuff. But I know people that collect loose and they'll buy these reproduction guns and lightsabers and stuff. And I was like, it's more fun to track down the real stuff. Believe me, you're going to feel better when your collection is complete. When you can say, hey, I got a full line of loose figures, all complete, all original parts. And you're going to be a lot more happier with that than saying, hey, okay, I got all the figures. All the guns look stupid. Or all the guns are... Some of the guns are good. I got all the figures, but some of the guns are reproduction, some of the lightsabers are reproduction, some of them real, some of them's not. Trust me, take the time to just collect the real stuff. You're gonna be happier, and it's not that, especially if you're collecting loose, it's not gonna be that, you're not gonna save that much. If you're looking to collect cheap, as I said in my test podcast, go to Facebook groups, get friendly with those people there, you'll find some good deals. Stay away from graded, especially if you're collecting loose. Now, we can do another whole podcast about graded action figures because I'm not a fan of grading action figure. I think it hurts the market more than anything else. But I understand when you got something very rare like a vinyl cape Jawa to get it graded. Not only does it keep it preserved in that original packaging, because I know the bubble can fade and everything, it's very good for insurance purposes when your house burns down. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but hey, it happens to some of us. But I can't believe I have to bring this up every time. Reproduction. Stay away from reproductions. And I know I'm going to get some slack for saying it, but sorry. You're just flooding the market with crap, and you're giving money to assholes. Sorry, I said it. You're giving money to assholes. Whoever's making this stuff and putting it on eBay, they're assholes. Just like the assholes that went out and bought every classic Nintendo and threw it up on eBay, so I can't find one out there. Believe me, I drove every fucking Best Buy and every Target and Walmart within 100 miles radius. I checked every Walmart, every Target, every hen house, every dog house, every crack house. No one had a classic NES. Then I go on eBay and this one guy's got 6 of them sitting there on his eBay lot. Oh, I know, it's free market. He can do what he wants. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm saying, should he do it? If you walk into a store, let's say there's a new Boba Fett figure out, and you know it's one per case, or you know it's very hot, and everybody wants it, and you walk into Walmart and you see 6 of them. Do you buy all 6 and throw them up on eBay? You might. You might. And I have no problem with somebody buying an extra one and throwing it on eBay. In fact, if I saw 6 of them, I would buy probably 2. I'd buy one for myself and one to eBay. But I want to come in and buy all 6 of them. But again, everybody's different. But you're an asshole if you got if you got that classic Nintendo, if you got 10 of them sitting on your eBay. Sorry, you're an asshole. Whew, getting fired up now, right? God, I really wanted that classic Nintendo, which I don't even know why I wanted it. I got a lot of the ROMs on my computer anyway. I can play them at any time. Just something about that little cute Nintendo. And I grew up on Nintendo. I know they got the Super one coming out. I like Super Nintendo a lot, but that classic NES I got in 85, I think it was, just blew my mind. It was my generation's Atari. My brother grew up, had Atari, which was fun. Also, if you never played Raise All Start, check out my YouTube channel. I've got me playing it on there. That was a great game. But that Nintendo back in the day is... I've always been a Nintendo fanboy, I'm going to admit. I've had... Let's see if I can name them all still. I had the Classic. I had the Super. I had the... What came after that? What came after the Super? The 64. The GameCube came next, right? Then the Wii, and then the Wii U. And now the Switch. Yes, I even have a Wii U. I do not have a Switch yet. In fact, honestly, I think I'm kind of done buying them. I would like to have the Switch just because I owned every other Nintendo system. But I just don't really... The Wii U I hardly ever played. Don't get me... Mario Kart, yeah. Mario Maker. Oh, have y'all played Mario Maker? I fell in love with Mario Maker. I sat here by myself at the house and just made Mario levels, for 24 hours. Make them and play them. But let me talk about this. Sorry, I know we're way off topic here talking about video games. Mario Maker. Let's talk about some more assholes here. Who are these assholes that like to make Mario levels where you don't have to touch the controller? You don't have to do anything. Sure, they're neat. When you first play them, you're like, hey, that's creative. Right, we got that the first week. We don't need, they got the Mario Challenge where they take a random, I don't know what it is, 10 boards or something. I can't remember. You take like a random fan-made board and throw them up there and see if you can do them all. Well, out of those 10, 6 of them, you don't have to touch the controller. You just sit there. Just sit your controller down and Mario moves itself all through the maze of the gameplay. Like I said, it looks neat. Whoever can do it is talented. I'll give them that. But what assholes? Don't upload it. Nobody gives a shit anymore. Like I said, that was good the first week. I'm ranting, but it just pisses me off because I was like, okay, I'm going to play the 100 Mario Challenge. Okay, I got through the first one. Here's the next one. Let me sit down my controller. Oh, all right. Okay, I got past that one. Sit down the controller on this one also. So I'll sit down the controller and go get me something to eat and come back. I'm still playing Mario because it just moves Mario through the board. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm sorry. It's hard to explain. It's just, what it was. It starts with like Mario at the beginning of the game with something to bump him and put him on like a conveyor and move into a platform that rises him up and that moves into another conveyor or something. It's just something so you don't have to trust the controller at all. Like I said, whoever designs it, it's good work, but we don't need it anymore, okay? We all know that people can design these games where you don't have to touch anything. When I'm playing my 100 Mario Challenge, I want to play Mario. I don't want to just sit there and look at my TV at Mario sliding across the screen. Wow. Whew. Okay, now let's get back on Kenner. Let's talk Kenner in the news. This is something I want to talk about each podcast. It's the latest news, anything related to Kenner. However, being that Kenner is most of the Kenner stuff's over 30 years old, so it's going to be very hard to find news. But I found some news this week, so let's talk about it. There's a Star Wars Topps trading card app out. It's been out for maybe 2 years or more now, where it's just virtual trading cards. But last week they released the Kenner Vintage cards. These are just basically what it sounds like. It's the action figures on card as a trading card. Now, I feel like I'm always complaining here, but let's complain. First, Jawa was free. They had a Vinyl Cape Jawa trading card that was free. Fine. Great. I have a complaint with that, but we'll come back to it. After that, Luke Skywalker. How did you get the Luke one? You had to buy a 99-cent pack. That's right. Although I have over 4 million credits saved up because I hardly play the app anymore, I just collect my money. You have to buy a 99-cent pack. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're saying. It's 99 cents. Who cares? I mean, really. But here, you buy a 99-cent pack that has, 6, 7 cards in it. Open it up. No Luke. Okay, then you have to buy another 99-cent. No Luke. You don't know when you're going to get it. Now, and there's not like you buy a vintage Kenner pack and they're all Kenner cards. No, they're just standard cards that you already have that you can get free, that you can get you can get with your credits. You don't have to buy. So if you're paying 99 cents for the deck, at least guarantee me I'm going to get the Luke. Then I wouldn't mind. Or hell, just say $2 and I wouldn't mind. But it's when I pay 99 cents after I've saved up all these credits to play the game, now I got to pay 99 cents to buy a pack that might or might not have the card I want in it. That's bullshit. Sorry, Tops, that's bullshit. Now, and then since then, Chewbacca's came out again in this 99 cent pack. Luckily, I've traded for Luke and Chewie and Luke, so I bought one pack, 99 cents, didn't have shit in it. It had the same old stuff I got 100 of. But let's go back to the Jawa vinyl cape. Now, I was going to rant and complain about this, but then I just checked and they fixed it. The vinyl cape Jawa, you click on the card and it shows you the back of the card. Well, they had the vinyl cape Jawa on the back of the 21 back. I think it was a 21 back. Let me double check. The 20 back, excuse me. They had them on. But Jawa was 12 on the 12 back. So I was like, come on. The very first card you get free to everybody, he screwed it up. But apparently I just rechecked my app and they went back and I pulled the card up to make sure if it was a 20 or 21 back. And it's a 12-back card now. So apparently they went back and fixed it. Good for you, Tops. Good for you. I'm proud of you. The only other thing is a nitpick. If you notice, the Chewie and Luke have the punch hole at the top has not been punched. But if you click and look at the back of the card, it's a punch card. Or it might be the other way around. But anyway, the front of the card is not punched and the back of the card is punched. If you ask me what is a punch hole, these were the peg hole at the top of the card that the retailer would punch out to put them on the peg. Some stores didn't hang on pegs, so you got what you call an unpunched card. Now, I don't understand. Now, apparently they're using the same back, I guess, for all these photos. But it's just weird because you pull up and look at your loot card, and it's unpunched, and you clicked on it, and it's punched on the back. Just nitpicking right there, just nitpicking. But my biggest gripe is this 99 cent thing. Why do I have to pay for a pack? And here's another thing about this Tops. I loved this app when it first came out. But it's too hard to collect. If it's a rare card, it's almost impossible to get. And then you got these people that want to trade. If they got one card they know you want, they want you to give you 10 rare cards for it. Oh, it just drives me crazy. But I don't understand. Okay, they have like a movie post. Why can't they do... All the packs are mixed up. That's what I'm trying to say, and that's what I hate. You go buy a pack... Okay, they did a Marvel line, Marvel Comics. So you buy the Marvel Comics pack, or use your credits. You open it up. You get no Marvel cards. What's the deal with that? You get just the same old shit that you get out of every pack. Why can't Marvel cards have Marvel cards in it? Why can't the movie quote pack have movie quote cards in it? Now, I understand they want to make some rare and some chase and all that. For the Marvel line, there's over 100 issues. You could release all of them in a Marvel pack. And have your commons and your rare and then your chase. You have like issue 50, be a hard one to find. I'd much rather open a pack and know I'm going to get a bunch of Marvel cards than I'm going to get here and get a bunch of cards I already got. I don't understand. In fact, let me pull it up. So maybe I can explain this a little better. Just give me a second here. Need some waiting on hold sound, don't we? Here we go. So you go to the store. And let's say you go to the Rogue One store. They have a sticker pack. 75,000 credits. You can get a pack of... How many cards are in this pack? 4 cards. What? I must be reading that wrong. Anyway, you buy this pack of sticker pack. Do you get a sticker in it? You might. You might not. Why can't it be all stickers? Cartoon collection pack. Here's a good example. It's a cartoon collection pack. So you think 5,000 credits. Okay, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to get a pack of stickers. I'm going to get a pack of cartoons. Cartoon collection. This is going to be great. I'm going to get Star Wars cartoon characters. Nope. You're going to get that pack. You're going to get the same old shit you got. And if you get lucky, you're going to get just one cartoon character. If you're lucky, it might not even be in there at all. You're probably going to buy 4 or 5 of them to even get one. Then it might be one you already have. I just don't understand. It can make this so much better. But they're all like that. Every pack, you see the pack and you're like, oh, cool, look at this, a movie poster pack. You open it up, it's no movie posters in it. It's the same old shit you got 100 times already. Nobody wants a Jar Jar Binks blue border card. I mean, come on. I'm rambling here, ain't I? That's why we call this the ramblings of a toy junkie, because I'm a rambler and I'm a toy junkie. And we're not just talking toys, we're talking everything, as you can see. Okay, let's close out this podcast with something Kenner, not Star Wars. Because I know I ramble on and on about Star Wars Kenner. So I'm going to try to end these with a look at a figure that's not Star Wars every time. And the figure we're going to take a closer look at today is the Phantasm from the Batman animated series Kenner line from the movie Mask of the Phantasm. And we're going to complain. I do a lot of that, don't I? One of the best Batman movies ever was Mask of the Phantasm. If you've never seen this Batman animated movie, it's right there with the Dark Knight film. I mean, it's probably one of the best Batman movies there is. But this figure is a major spoiler. So again, if you've never seen the movie Mask of the Phantasm and you want to see it, spoiler alert, danger, Will Warpison, this is a spoiler alert. The figure itself is a spoiler. We don't know that this is a female character from the film. But what does Kenner do when they put it on this card? They have Phantasm without her mask on. I don't know why they didn't package it with the mask. So I think these figures actually came out before the film did. I don't understand. Maybe this is, around 93 when Hasbro took over. So I'm going to blame Hasbro. Kenner wouldn't do this. Someone who just bought Kenner came in with their stupid logic and brought it. Now, at the same time, these same toy companies are going to tell you, female figures don't sell. We can't sell female action figures. Especially back then in the 90s, this is something they chanted all the time. So if you can't sell female action figures, why not cover this female action figure up with a Phantom mask on? That way you don't spoil it, and then kids can buy it thinking they got a boy figure. I still don't understand, but it's a great line. It's part of the animated TV show made into a film. It's a great looking figure. Don't get me wrong. It's probably one of my favorite figures there is. But it's the Phantom, and why they release her showing her face, I don't know. Someone, if you work at Kenner or worked at Kenner back then, please let me know who was the what's that? Who are the ad wizards that came up with this one? Okay, so if you're the ad wizard that came up with this one, please let me know what you were thinking. It's like making a Darth Vader figure in 1980 and calling it the Luke Skywalker father action figure. I mean, really. But that's a look at that figure. And again, I know I talk a lot. This is a Kenner podcast, and I end up talking mostly Star Wars Kenner, and I don't want to do that. But I know Kenner more than I know everything else. I know Star Wars more than I know anything else when it comes to Kenner. And that's why I'm going to try to get some other people on here to know other lines. But also from talking to you guys on Twitter, you like the Star Wars talk more than anything else. But like I said, we got a guy that knows all about the Shadow. It's going to be on a little later this month or next month. So that's going to be fun. If you're an Alec Baldwin fan or just a fan of the Shadow, you're going to want to listen to that one. Trust me. And again, Kyle Newman's going to be here. We're going to talk to him. We're going to ask him about a fanboy sequel. We're not just going to talk Star Wars because I want that sequel. I want to see what the fanboys are up to. Okay, guys, I think I rambled enough. Now my mouth is so dry. I feel like Clark Griswold in the Vacation movie when he's walking through the desert. Remember that scene? I didn't even get into the topic I wanted to get into, and didn't even get into the topic that I wanted to get into was Spaceballs. The movie sucks. I know what you're saying, it doesn't suck and you love it, but when you sit down and watch it now as an adult, it sucks. And maybe I'll get into why it sucks on another podcast, or maybe you can tell me where I'm wrong. But let me know what you think about this podcast. This is our first official one. We did 2 test episodes. They're up on YouTube, and they should be up on this iTunes channel. That's where you found it. But wherever you found it, or wherever you listen to this at, they should be up there also. And here's another thing. If you want to support this podcast, make it better, please help us by donating at our Patreon site at Star Wars Junk. We'll put a link in the description so you can get it. It's patreon.com/Star Wars Junk. And if you want to help, but you don't want to help for free, we have t-shirts. That's right. We have Kenner t-shirts, JLN t-shirts, a t-shirt with a Zares logo. We got Star Wars t-shirts. We got exclusive logo t-shirts. We got all kinds of things. Just go to StarWarsJunk.net, get you a t-shirt. That money from your t-shirt goes to help the podcast, the website, the YouTube channel, and all that. So you're not only supporting us, but you're also buying a very cool ass shirt. One of the shirts I love the most, and no one's bought it. I don't understand. It's the Jurassic Park logo, but it has Barney the dinosaur in it, and it says Jurassic Dork. Is that funny or what? Why does no one like that shirt? I don't know. I mean, I've sold a lot of the other shirts. That one, I don't think I can give away. But check it out. I love it. Again, you can find a link to the t-shirts, the Patreon, the YouTube, both Twitter accounts. Everything you need to know is at StarWarsJunk.net. And again, we'll be back in about 2 weeks. Let us know what you think about this one. Please go to Kenner Toys on Twitter and StarWarsJunk.net. Let us know. And I just can't quit rambling, can I? Thank you again for listening. We'll talk again.